Okay, well, hi everyone. I think we'll get going because, yeah, it's 5 past, so we're ready to kick off. So firstly, thank you for joining our webinar. Before we get going, if you haven't already got your mic on mute, if you could please just mute it, because there's a few of us on. And yeah, if you've got any questions throughout the session, please just store those up because we will come to those at the end. Okay, so the session today is all about Vocoll, which is First One's proprietary communication and collaboration product suite. And essentially, as we'll go on to discuss, the product itself has broad appeal across what we're seeing, how it's used within our customer base. We'll talk about the different settings it's been used in, but this will include CAMs, it's being used in appointments, maternity ambulatory care, as well as comms teams and imaging, just to name a few. So to start, just some quick introductions of the core Vocoll team. So my name's Sabrina. I know we've got another Sabrina on. So I'm Sabrina, Head of Digital Health Strategy. I'm joined on the webinar by Tom, who's our Technical Director, and Rob, who's not with us, but is our Creative Director. And collectively, we form the core Vocoll team, but we sit within inside of the First One group, and so we are supported by and indeed collaborate with teams right across the group. So to kick off, I just want to give a quick overview of First One and touch briefly on our ethos, because our sort of founding vision to make lives better through digital empowerment really still holds true to this day. And as you'll go on to see, it's very much woven into the features and functionality of Vocoll itself. And that vision filters down into our mission, which is about providing optimized and personalized digital experiences that positively impact the lives both of your staff, but also your patients and service users. And so before we go on to talk about Vocoll, just a quick overview of First One so that for several of the customers on the call, you'll understand where Vocoll fits in. So essentially, there are 3 core elements which make up the First One group. So sitting at the core is First One Technologies. And again, our customers will be familiar with elements of these. So First One Technology is responsible for powering websites, portals, intranets and extranets. We've got Firebox Digital, which is our creative services arm, and then of course Vocoll. And the key take home from this side really is that each of the solutions sitting within each vertical have been designed so that they can be deployed in a standalone setting. So you don't have to have all of it to have Vocoll. However, the technology and the expertise within each vertical has been designed such that it can be integrated, and therefore the technology and the solutions that have the flexibility for customers to sort of cherry pick the elements that they want to build a kind of truly unique and comprehensive digital solution. So that breadth and depth of expertise is particularly powerful when we combine it with our sector-specific expertise. So as you can see on this slide, we've built up a loyal NHS customer base, and we're currently powering over 80 healthcare-specific solutions, which are supporting 1.2 million active users. And as you'll go on to see with Vocoll, it's kind of taking that expertise that we have in digital, but applying it to the unique requirements of the NHS, which makes it a truly unique product. Okay, so Vocoll itself, it's all about communication, collaboration, and better patient experience. So Vocoll essentially is made up of 4 key elements which work synergistically together. And sitting at the core is the live support, which is essentially a secure and 2-way communication channel between your external patients or service users and your frontline support or care teams. And then wrapped around that are 3 complementary pieces of functionality, and they all work synergistically together. So connected chat is about secure internal messaging streams between your internal members of your organisation. And combined with live support, what that really allows you to do is to pool knowledge and pool resources. So if you have somebody on the frontline care team delivering direct support to a patient or service user, and perhaps they don't know the information or they don't have the answer to hand, they can use the connected chat functionality to reach out to colleagues inside of the organisation to obtain that knowledge and then share that seamlessly through the chat. Or alternatively, they can seamlessly transfer the chat itself to a colleague if they are in the position that they're able to directly respond to patient or service user queries. And then there's the knowledge base element. And essentially think of this as a digital library. So the knowledge base really allows you to build up a deep clinical operational knowledge base of your expertise, and that is integrated with our AI-driven chatbot, so that together these really allow your patients and service users to intelligently retrieve pieces of information that they require, and it really supports those on the kind of frontline teams that are delivering support to the end users. So on to the demo. Let me just set that up for you now.
Cool. So we're just going to go through a quick demo now. So I'll show you how you interact with the live support from the front end, how as an agent you deal with the calls, all the different functionalities and features you have, and then kind of a quick rundown of the admin area and the different configuration options, as well as kind of a brief view of the knowledge base and the chatbot and how that all integrates with the system. And then at the end, we'll kind of talk about some of the new features we've got going on and where kind of we're taking the next steps going forward. So if I start right now, down here on the bottom right is a chat droplet, which is just put on one of our test websites. This is just a bit of JavaScript that can be added to any website or any intranet or any portal, anything you might have. And this is where people will initiate the chat from. So the first important thing to talk about here is when you initiate a chat, this button will only show as available when you have members of your team on shift and it's within your opening hours. So what that means is you have complete control over when people are coming to you with queries. So it's not like, it's just open all the time, but there's no agents available and people are getting upset because they're not there to talk to anyone. As soon as someone sets themselves off shift, which I'll talk about in a second, or it's outside of your opening hours, that button won't be available to take calls. So you have full control over when those queries come in. That button is also associated with the different teams in your organization as well. So you may have a team set up for appointments and team set up for customer services, a team set up for comms. You can change those buttons so they specifically go through to that team. So when I say on shift, this is the admin view here as an agent, and this little button up here just sets yourself as available to take calls. So if you need to pop out for a meeting, you've got you need to leave early, you're going out for lunch, you simply set yourself off shift, and then no calls will come through to you if you're the only person on shift. So if I now switch back to the button. So firstly, this one's a generic one, so it'll let me choose which team I want to talk to. These will show all the teams available. So even though I'm not available for these two, there'll be another agent on shift who is available, which is why it's showing all of them. If I then come through, and I'll just put some test information in here. This form, again, is customizable, so you can configure what information you want to grab from them, and then you select a topic. So when it's my appointment, again, all the messaging, and this is kind of a common theme throughout the system, all the messaging and information is all customizable in the configuration area. So this wait time at the moment is just set up to be kind of plain text 10 minutes, but you can also set it up to automatically calculate the wait times. If I then click Start Chat, you'll see in the background here that I've appeared as a new service user who's come through to the appointments team. You might have also just faintly heard that it did a little notification sound, and you saw a desktop notification. So these are kind of 3 or 4 different ways where once a service user has started a chat as an agent, you immediately get those notifications, and they keep going until you then make the screen active as well. So that's just so that you don't have to have the screen open in the background. As long as you're logged in, you can have it minimized. You can be working in a spreadsheet or on the intranet or any other system you might be in. Those desktop notifications will come up in front of everything, letting you know someone's there, you need to deal with it. Now, if I click over here, I'll see that they come through to the generic appointments team, and I can see it's color-coded them with what category they've got set up. This is, again, just another quick way of triaging the calls so that you know these ones are what I'm dealing with, these colors are maybe associated to a different set of categories. It just allows the agents a really flexible way of picking up the calls that they know how to best deal with so they can manage the times as best possible. Here I've got the option to accept it. This will move it from the generic queue that everyone sees into my personal queue, and it will now reset the duration, so this is the call time duration. And if I switch back to the chat, they'll get a little notification here to say who you're chatting to. So on the email we sent out, our case study was really around CAMs, which is something we've written up more in full as well, that'll be going on our website soon. So one of the changes that CAMs have done, that we have made for the CAMs team, is to change how this initial interaction works, so that this icon and this text are a lot larger, and it shows you kind of a full bio of the person you're talking to. So as a young person or a person who has mental health needs, when you come through to talk to someone, you see a big picture of who you're talking to, and it will give you a full bio of, this is Jane, she has been working in this role for 15 years, this is her expertise, and it's a really soft way of kind of getting that trust and interaction so people can start the call and start kind of airing their grievances and chatting through it. An additional feature we have done for that as well is up here, there's a little breadcrumb, and this, so it doesn't show the Google map on our test site because it doesn't, Google don't like test sites, but this shows a Google map of where the caller is coming from as well, so it actually gives you their exact location. So if that is something that, if a call has come into the CAMS team and it is high risk and you want to make sure you send someone out to go check on them straight away, or even you need to send an ambulance around, you have their exact location so you can deal with it like that. So now if I switch back, now that I've been accepted, you can simply send messages back and forth. Again, if you're not actively in the window, you'll get notifications. So if someone started a call and then they've gone away, as soon as they do send a message, you'll get those notifications. See if I can not spell it wrong. How can I help today? And then you can send messages back and forth. So whilst you're in the call, there's a few things you can do as well. So firstly, you can upload media. So if you want to send images or videos or PDFs or anything like that across, you can do that from here. And you can also, the service user also has the ability to do that as well. So if you've got a common document like a map of the trust or a PDF about some information leaflet that you want to send out, you can share that with them, and it will render in line. So they don't have to go to an external link or download anything. It will all show in place. Along with that, you also have the reusable media. So any media you do upload will be saved in your system as well. So you can simply go back and reuse it as an agent. So it's kind of another quick way of dealing with the query. Along with the reusable media, you have reusable responses. So these are pre-written bits of text that you create as an admin of the system that you can simply filter out here to your team and then go and insert them into the chat. And it's kind of another quick way for your agents to send those messages that they type over and over again. And those messages go straight into the chat box here, so you can customize them still for having a more human feel depending on the call. It's just another quick way for your agents to deal with the queries. One of the kind of biggest benefits of live support over, say, phones or email systems is that you can handle multiple chats at once. So up here, I've just got one open, but if there are multiple calls coming in, I can quickly open multiple of them and just switch between them. So I can be dealing with 3 or 4 different people at once, send one of them a message, whilst I'm waiting for them to reply, switch to another one, send them a message. So it really allows you to optimize your time, and it's generally one of the highest rated methods of contact from an end user point of view as well, because they get to deal with it on their own time. They're not stuck on the phone I was actually waiting for some technology to turn up to my house yesterday, and I had to sit on the phone for about an hour with the team, waiting to be jumped between America and Europe and the UK. And yeah, it just kind of constantly gets you frustrated because you can't do anything whilst you're doing that. Whereas if they actually had a live chat for their team, I would have been able to just send my messages and continue doing what I was doing in the background. So if I close these, I'll just go over to this window here. So the top list is support. So this shows you your support queues and the different teams and their support queues. If I go down to here, these are your internal colleagues. So this is where you can send a message to different members of your team. If you've got a query come through that you need to ask someone's advice on, you can quickly send them a message in a little pane or in a full window. Or if you want to escalate it to them, you can just quickly say, are you okay for me to send this call over? These icons here will show if people are available, and if they are purple, it'll also show that they're another agent on live support taking calls as well, like Kevin is down here. So you know that they've set themselves available to pick up calls. As well as kind of internal contacts, you have groups. So if you know that the query that's come in is about maternity, but you don't know who in maternity is the best person to talk to, you can have a group set up that has all of their agents in there, and you just send the question into there and whoever's available can pick it up. So it's another quick way of just making sure you have all the information shared within the trust. That's kind of the collaboration side of it. And you can have as many contact signs up as you need, and you can kind of create as many groups as you need. So those are kind of the main features over here. If I switch back to the call, there's a couple of things you can do here at the top. Firstly, you can export the chat. So this allows you to download a file of the full transcript of the call. You can also put a configuration option on so that the service user can download one for theirs as well. And this will give you a zip file of either a text document or a PDF, depending on what you want. So you can then go and upload that to your patient system. One thing to note is all of the export and all of the system is API built, which means the whole way it's been built is fully API driven, so that if there is a patient system that has an API available, we can just connect to that and automatically send that file through. As long as they put in their patient information number, we've got something to connect to, we can hook those up. So it's kind of built in mind with kind of the next level of being able to connect and automatically share that data through. The next option here is reassign. As I said earlier, if you need to go and escalate this call to a manager, or it's come through to one team, but actually they've got a query that relates to another team, this is where you can go and reassign it. This will allow you to put a message into the other agent on why you're reassigning it, but that message won't show to the user. And then that will go and appear in their queue once you assign it to them. They'll also be able to see the whole transcript that you've had with them, so they don't have to go and ask all the same questions again. They can just read up, pick up from where you left off, and then continue dealing with the call from there. The next option here is more for when you're looking at reporting data later on. This shows you the different categories that people have raised calls on, and it allows you to reassign that category. So in this case, I came in on the category when's my appointment, but if I wanted to go and change that to I wish to cancel my appointment because that's what the actual query is about, I can just go and reassign that. And then when you come to look at the reporting, you have a lot more accurate view, so you know these are the specific queries and concerns that people are coming in with. Either we need to get more people who know about that, we need to get more information on the website to support that. It allows you to really kind of do a deep dive into that data and make sure you've got all the information you need available. And the final option across here is the closed categories. So again, this was a feature that we developed in conjunction with Northamptonshire for the CANS team. Obviously, because the CANS team is quite an intense touch point, they didn't want people to have to go and select a category that was, labeling themselves as, it might be a disorder or high risk. They didn't want those users to have to click that because that's a blocker for them actually coming onto the call. So the way they've got it set up, and the reason this feature's here, is so that the opening category, you just have a completely generic one that just says, live chat or come talk. And then when the agent is actually during the call, they can set a closed category that is specific to that call, but that's something the service user can't see. So if it is high risk or it is a mental health issue, they can assign that so that they know exactly what to do with the call and what the next steps are, but the user doesn't see any of that information as well. So if we just pick one of these. From inside the call as well, you can also edit your messages, and you have a translation feature. So again, this was something that we built into conjunction with BART when they were using it for their appointments team, and that is they have a huge array of languages of users they come in on, and they don't have a full department that has all of the linguistic skills to manage those. So this is integrated with Google Translate, and the idea is that the message itself is stored as the user has typed it, but then if you want to go, so if the user has typed it in Arabic, you can then go and translate it to English so you know what they've said. And again, for the end user, they can also translate their messages to a language that they better understand. But as I say, it kind of stores it all as it was originally written, so it doesn't change the meaning of anything. And that's all integrated with Google Translate, so it goes through their translate system. And the list of languages we have here isn't kind of a full list. These are just the ones that we were told are kind of the most used from our current customers. But again, if there are any that you feel are missing, they're really simple just for us to just add on. So once you've kind of done with the call, the next step is to resolve it. So I'll get a notification, and if I switch back to the user's view, they'll get a end chat form. So again, this is customizable in the admin system, and so you can put whatever questions you want in there. How was the general ones, rate your call 1 to 5, how did you find this? But as it's generally, if it's something that the appointments team are picking up and you've helped them resolve a call, that's also a good point to get some additional feedback from them. Have you seen our website? We've just done a redesign. Did you know you could find this information here as well? It allows you to kind of get a bit more interaction from them and provide them some additional information. And as I say, that form is kind of fully customizable. You can change it as you need, and you get that data there. So I'll switch back here. Then once they've resolved the call, it will stay open for the agent so that they can make sure they've exported the final transcript and close it. If they have, and then you'll get a notification. If they have not exported it, you can, in the admin section, go and get all the historical transcripts as well. So all that information is there. And then the last remaining options up here are all around customizing your profile. So you can put and this is where I said having that image for the CAMS team is important, and having that bio, which is in here as well. That gives all the information to the users in the CAMS team for the Northamptonshire case study. That's where they have that interaction and making it a lot more user-friendly. So that's kind of a quick, brief view of the front end as an agent, as a user, how you connect, some of the different features we've added. It's kind of not an extensive list of all of them because there's quite a lot of different configuration options within the system that we've added. So I'll quickly kind of run through a couple of those now before we go on to some more, to look at some of the future stuff we're doing and some Q&A. But some of these features, it's worth noting the way we've built out the system is such that we just have one kind of core copy of the code, and anytime a customer, such as Northamptonshire or BART, suggests a feature that will make it work better for them, so whether that be all the features we've added for CAMS, the appointments team, the ones for maternity, we build those features into the system, and we just kind of release that in a cycle in the background so that everyone gets access to all those features, and then they just become configuration options that you can turn on and off, which allows you to kind of really customize it depending on which team you're using it for and how you need to use it. So I'll just quickly run through what you can do in the admin section. I won't go through, as I said, all of those options because there's a lot of them. But firstly, you get kind of a dashboard of reports. So this shows you all the information I was talking about earlier as far as what categories people started calls on, how long those calls took to resolve, and what those closed categories were, as well as some information on the active users, screen resolution, all these reports as well. This is just kind of a 2-week snapshot, but all these reports you can run in a lot more depth in the system, which I'll show you in a second. So the first option, installation, this is just about managing your users on the system. So one thing that's worth mentioning is you can have as many users signed up to the system as you want. So you can have all your teams in there and all the members of those teams in there. The more people you have in there, the better, because that allows you to really ask the right questions of the right people. And the way the system is actually licensed is on concurrent agents on shift. So that means you can have as many users signed up to the system, but it's actually about how many people you have available to take calls at one time. And this is kind of a model that we designed when working with the NHS, because they have lots of different teams with lots of different nurses or staff kind of switching in and out. They're all very busy doing a lot of different things. So actually, having a license per user, like most systems do, is just not really cost effective at all. Whereas, they might have a team of 6 or 7 people, but they're only ever going to have 1 or 2 people from that team on shift at a given time. So this allows you to have, a person on shift as soon as they set themselves on shift. If they need to go out for a meeting, they've got other work they need to do. As soon as they're off shift, that frees that license up for a different user to then pick up. So that's how the concurrent licenses work. So I'll switch back to here. The internal chat features are for when you're talking to other members of your team. So this just gives you a report of who's online and gives you some access to some of the league functionalities as a way of just having gamifying it to make sure people are setting themselves on shift. It's just kind of a fun way of making sure they're available to take calls and they're using the system. And the main area we're going to talk about today is the live support and the knowledge base. So the live support is where a lot of the configuration options are, so I won't go through all of them, as I said, but the first few options here, the support agent screen as an admin allows you to see all the different agents who are on shift, how many calls they've got, how long they've been waiting, and what different categories they came in on. So it really lets you kind of manage from a high level. If you've got 6 or 7 people on shift and they're bouncing 20 or 30 calls, you can make sure you're balancing them correctly. You can dive in and help any you need to. It also lets you see all the users you have on the system. And if someone has, for whatever reason, left for the day or been rushed off to a meeting and not set themselves off shift, as an admin, again, you have the ability to override that to make sure it's kind of as up to date as possible. And then you have the ability to run your reports against a specific user, so you can identify any potential training needs and make sure that everyone's kind of optimizing their time on the system. So all the reports can be run by a given start and end date, so you have full customizable of what time you run them, and they can be run either as a CSV, which will just download the data as a CSV, a graph, which will render inline like the dashboard, or you can schedule them. So what this means is, if I say schedule this for 1 week, every week it will go and take a snapshot of that data, roll the start date and the end date on a week, run that as a CSV, and then email it to me. So when you, as a manager, when you know exactly what information you need, you can just set those up to be scheduled, so they just turn up in your inbox and you don't have to manually do them. The next set of reports are, again, kind of similar information, so number of tickets, what hours were busy, who closed them, what teams closed them. This is where you can run them against the whole organization, so less about identifying training needs and more about identifying what times of day are the busiest, so you can optimize your staffing and what type of information people are looking for the most. So you can really kind of change any information on your website or the messaging that you're providing to people to make sure if that's, if people are missing appointments because they don't know where the parking is, for example, you can know, let's make a big deal of that on the website because it is a bit confusing. If it's going to Berkshire, there's the boulder that sometimes comes up near your car and those sort of things. So if I then switch down here, so those are those reports. The feedback form, as I mentioned, is the form at the end of the chat where you can add and modify those questions. And then you can run an export again against those data. And the call export is where you can go and get those historical transcripts. In here, you also have the ability to delete the call messages. So what this does, as far as kind of a GDPR point of view, it will anonymize the data. So it will remove the transcript, it will remove any personal information, but it will keep the metadata that a call happened so that it doesn't affect your reports, but you kind of anonymize it from a GDPR point of view. And at the moment, this is just a manual process because a lot of different teams we found have their own IG rules around how often and what information is and isn't. So we've just kind of built it into the system so that it's fully manageable, and you can set that up to run kind of however best suits your ID team's needs. So if I sit down here, organization options, this is kind of the first set of configuration options. So as I say, there's some that are around messaging that you can set yourself, or other features such as the large avatars, or the, showing or hiding emojis that you can turn on and modify to kind of best suit your whole organization's needs. So you have a whole set of them that are at an organization level, and then you have an additional set of them that are per team level. So I'll go into that now. So down here, you have the edit teams. So this is where you can set up a kind of a configured, customizable area for different teams of your business. So you have appointments, you have comms, you have maternity, you might have imaging, you might have CAMS, or 0 to 19 hub, which is another one that Northamptonshire have. You can set up each team's area separately. You can manage which agents can access that team as well. So when a call comes through, they're only going to see calls from their specific team. And then you have a load of specific options to customize that team as well. So again, you have a set of options here around messaging and different configuration options. And you also have all the categories. So if I scroll down here, you can kind of create and customize your categories, pick a color. And also all the categories have this opening message. And this is kind of an additional level of triage where you can set, if someone comes into this category that's about their appointment, then you can ask them, make sure you have your hospital reference, your patient number, your address, any information that you might need them to have. You can get the system to automatically ask them those questions so that by the time that someone comes to pick it up, all that information is already available, and it gives you kind of a head start on getting the chat going. And then you also have the closed categories down here as well, which I mentioned before. So the additional options you also have is you can set the opening hours. So as I mentioned at the start, you can customize each team when they're available. You can change those on a week-to-week basis, day-to-day basis to make sure that kind of it's fitting exactly when your teams are available. You can set the button. So this is where the users initiate the chat from. You can completely customize this, how it feels, what category it works for, kind of brand it along with your branding. And finally, you have the responses as well. So the pre-written responses that an admin can set up so that agents can quickly deal with information on the chat. So those are the main configuration kind of areas that you have in the system. As I said, I'm not going to go into all of them because there's a lot of them. But what we kind of do here is we have a free trial. So you can set up a free trial. It's completely kind of full access to the whole system. So we can go and get you set up and you can run through those options yourself and kind of work out what works best. Trial it for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, and then you already know what's working, how you want it set up, and how you can deal with it before you even need to look at kind of getting it through any other ID or anything like that. So before we go on to kind of the future bits of work, I just want to quickly go through some of the knowledge base and chatbot stuff as well. So this is one of our newer features we've added, and we're looking at kind of expanding it, which we'll talk about more in a second. But this is specifically when we be talking to NHS, one of the biggest concerns they've had is how do we add this additional stream to our team because they're already super busy. And we're actually kind of, when going through it, because it's so simple to use as far as, it's a chat system, most people already have experience with them. We've not really found that there's ever needs to be a massive amount of training that needs to go into getting these teams up to speed. And because it's less about adding an additional channel and it's more about a channel shift, it's not actually adding additional workload. It's just moving those calls that would be phone calls or emails or people coming in, face to face. It's moving them online where you can deal with them a lot more efficiently because you can handle those multiple calls. So, it's not really kind of additional workload. It's just moving it from one system to another that's a lot quicker to manage and use. But one of the things that, in response to that we've also looked at adding is having more levels of interaction before it gets to the agent so that people can resolve their queries themselves. So this is where the knowledge base and the chatbot come in. So as Sabrina mentioned, the knowledge base that we've built is allows you to put different questions in here and put the answers in there, and it allows you to automatically tag them. So it'll pick up keywords within the text and associate them to the call. So if we look at this one here, click on edit. So there's kind of some tags associated with this one. As an example, we've just put a lot of tags in to show you how it works. But the system will automatically scan it for those keywords and tag it associated to it. And when then they come to interact with the bot, which I'll show you in a second, then it'll pick up those knowledge-based items and suggest it for them. So the whole idea is, whilst the user's in queue, if you have the bot enabled, then they'll be able to kind of pick up the call and ask some questions of that system before they get to an agent. So if it is about, how do I reschedule my appointment, or, if it is a question about parking, you can just set up all that knowledge-based information, and then when they come through, they can already get those questions answered from them. So I just go have a look at what team's got it set up. So I just quickly switch over to a different team. So you'll get some messaging here, and you'll get an FAQs button. This allows you to see questions that have already been pre-set up for this category, so you can ask them those questions and get them answered yourselves. And you can also type a question into here before you start the chat, and the bot will kind of look for keywords from what you've typed, go match that with items from the knowledge base, and suggest those back. It's also kind of got a level of learning in there as well, so that the queries that generate better responses are generally suggested higher up. So again, it kind of gives you that kind of extra level of triage where the service user who's already selected what team they want to talk to, they've already selected what category they want to talk about, then they can already answer a few questions back and forth before then actually getting to either an agent, or the ideal scenario is if it is a simple question that comes up a lot, you have all that information in the knowledge base so they can resolve the, find out the information they need, resolve the call themselves, and then that's kind of a whole chat that isn't even hitting an agent at that point because it's being resolved through the chatbot. And we'll kind of talk in a second how kind of the next level of interaction we want to add with that, as far as increasing the intelligence and allowing users not just to build out a knowledge base, but to build out a more intelligent triage system as well, so that you can go kind of down trees of questions, and if they ask this question, they can get these sets of answers. So it really allows kind of take the weight off your team by making sure that the system can automatically respond to as many of those more generic calls as possible. Obviously, for stuff like when we're talking to Northamptonshire for the CAMs, that's something that's a bit trickier to automate. So you need to, we're working with them to make sure that the way it's set up and the questions are kind of making people feel like they haven't got access to people. So it's all about, additional information available to them. If they do still want to go through to an agent, they have that option available, and all the messaging makes it very clear that if you want to wait for an agent to talk to, you can. Otherwise, the system's here as an additional way to help get you the information you need. And so that's kind of a really quick overview of the system at a high level and the different areas that we've got set up. Before we kind of go back to the slides, I will say, if you do want to see it a bit more in depth, we'll talk about kind of a specific team or a specific scenario. These are all kind of really high level in the demo system, so they might not kind of necessarily match exactly how you kind of can see using it, but we can set up a one-to-one webinar where we can really go through in detail, how would my CAMS team use it, how would my maternity team use it, and we can kind of go through and talk about how the different teams that we've got set up are using it more in detail with all of these bits of functionality. Okay, if I just switch back here. And go on to the next slide.
Yeah, great. So hopefully you've now got a good understanding, now that you've seen Vocoll, as to what it can do and kind of its capabilities to be used across different care settings. I won't go through the bullets on the slide. This is really just a summary of everything we've covered. So I think really the kind of key final slide for us is to talk about the future, because we are internally investing a lot in Vocoll, and we very much have a collaborative and customer-led approach. So as Tom mentioned several times, we tweak a lot of the functionality based on real first-hand experience. We're in the process of setting it up to pilot with a GDE at the moment, and that's purely based on, they've got their digital triage, they've got their triage pathway already in place for their maternity team, but those future developments that you can see, so for example, the knowledge base and the chatbot, they want to kind of work together with us to really get that clinical knowledge into a digital form to really support their frontline midwives and care teams at the moment. So we've got a lot of exciting developments, and really the knowledge base and the chatbot are kind of the biggest areas where we're looking at applying those to specific clinical settings and working with our partner trusts and GDEs that have sort of unique requirements for those areas. And then finally, digital appointment letters is kind of the next big development chunk on the horizon, along with the other two. But I think, yeah, that